you have to allow me to apologize. I'm a little bit sick right now, but Angela, what a wonderful introduction. You've been a long friend of mine and of our family, and I'm very honored that you thought of me today to come and share a few words with everyone here today. So I got a text last night from Shane Sangri. Shane, can you stand up, please? Good, thank you. Thanks, Shane. I just want to embarrass him. He said, "Hey, Casey, you coming tomorrow?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Don't put me to sleep." So everybody watch Shane as I speak, please. I wanted to again thank all of you for being here today. I wanted to thank the Lumina Foundation for having the great vision when they were reading the application from Montana that we're a group that really means well. We're a group that really has our Native students at the very center of what we do in the not only in the university system, but within our tribal colleges. I wanted to thank Dawson. Dawson's had the courage this morning to come and share some very personal things with us. And I don't know if he would have been able to do that if it wasn't for higher education and what Montana State was able to provide him with. And so, Dawson, thank you for sharing your story with all of us today. Angela asked me to share a little bit more about myself. She says, some people just don't know who you are, Casey. So that's a part of what I want to do today. And I'm going to start with a pretty funny story. So 31 years ago, my mother got all five of our kids, all five of us. She said, "Go get in the van. We're going to Kalispell." And at that point in time, the van that we were driving was just ridiculous. It was a retired Lake County mental health vehicle that had holes in the floor inside, which was fun because we would drop garbage out while we were driving. We got in the car and we went into town and we cashed my dad's per capita check. And I remember seeing all this cash being counted, at the window, thinking, "Holy cow, we've made it. We've made it." But it was for our annual trip up to Kalispell to get new clothes. And we decided we were going to take the East Shore route up the East Shore of Flathead Lake. We stopped in this gas station in Big Fork, and we were always really particular where we parked our cars because about half the time they didn't start again. So we went to the gas station. We parked just a little north of the parking lot. We went inside and we used the restroom, and we came back out. And one of my older brothers, Danny, he opened the door, and my mom's wallet, which was just the paper envelope you get when you cash your checks, my mom's envelope flew out of the car. It was super windy. It flew out of the car, and all of our cash, everything that we had, just started flying in the wind. Some flew over, on the road. Some flew down this little hillside, and my mom just yelled at us, "Get it, get it!" And so all five of us, I think age 3 to 13, were running around picking up all this cash, from all over this area. And we had $400, and we were able to find $350, which was pretty impressive, I thought. And we were getting ready to head out, and for some odd reason, I decided to reach into this mud puddle that was near the car and just scoop through this mud puddle. I probably scooped 2 or 3 times. And the last time I scooped and I grabbed a $50 bill to equal the exact amount of money that we got about 45 minutes earlier. I can't imagine if there was any onlookers what the heck they thought of us. What a weird motley crew we were. we got in the car, and my mom started just screaming in celebration, and we were all dancing in the car. And it's a story that we always tell and laugh about in our family, even to this day. But it was a little later in life that I found out that $400 was almost double what my dad's paycheck was every 2 weeks. So if you do the math, you know, we had a family of 7, and we were raised on, for most of my childhood, we were raised on less than $7,000. We had literally no idea that we were poor. We grew up in a HUD house, and only really because our tribal credit was the only financier that was willing to take a risk with my dad and give us a loan for a home. We grew up with many vehicles in our yard, but we had literally no idea that we were poor. We were a split family. My mom's non-Indian. My dad's Indian. My grandpa was in the Bureau of Indian Affairs for his whole career as a superintendent, and he was a judge for our tribe when he retired. My dad was a part-time instructor at Salish Kootenai College and small business owner, and eventually became a councilman for our tribe. My mother eventually became a teacher later in life. But we were poor, but we didn't know it. But the one thing that we did know is that education was important. Education was important. And I think that it really stems from my great-grandmother, Grandma Z. Grandma Z, when she was 6 years old, was taken off a flathead and put on a train and sent down to Haskell in Kansas at age 6 years old. I've got, my oldest kids are 7, my twins are 7. I can't fathom what that experience must have been like. From age 6 to age 17, she was at Haskell. And I can guarantee you there were hard times for her. But she had something in her that said, I am going to get through this. And about 6 months before she was supposed to get whatever was a credential during those times, she actually had to come home and take care of her parents who were very sick. So she didn't get that opportunity to get that credential. But she passed down that value that education is important to my grandpa, who went to the University of Montana. He may have been the first Native American, if not one of the first Native American basketball players to play at University of Montana. He played under Dahlberg. He didn't actually get his opportunity to get a degree. He had to quit basketball team, and he joined the war effort in World War II, went out to the Pacific. But he passed down that love for education, or that value that education was important to my dad, who ended up getting an associate's degree and then a bachelor's degree, got really close to a master's degree. And then, of course, my mother, who in her 40s finally finished up getting her degree at Salish Kootenai College. So this idea that education is important has been something that has been very close to our family for many generations, and that I think that makes things a little bit unique. But for me, it was just expected that you would go to college. And I really appreciate this about my parents, but there was no deep conversation about the benefits of education. There was no conversation about student loan debt or what it means to finance higher education, or job prospects, or where do you want to work, or even hey Casey, what major are you going to pursue? There was none of that. I was just told, it's probably good for you to go, and it'll help you help people. It took me off the reservation for the first time, away from the same house that I'd lived in my whole entire life, away from a giant family, and away from a community that really supported me. It was an exciting time and also extraordinarily confusing time for me. But I took the medicine, the higher education medicine, and I went on to earn 3 different degrees and an entire family's worth of student loan debt, which I'm still paying back, and I'm sure I will be when my kids are in college. And I am passing down that value of education to my kids. In fact, my 2 older boys, I heard them the other day sort of arguing back and forth, not about where they were going to college, but they were really starting to get concerned about which college was going to draft them for football. And they're 7 years old. One's a Bobcat fan, one's an MSU fan. Higher education was absolutely worth it to me. And higher education is absolutely worth it to all of our Native students in the university system and within our tribal colleges. What is Indian student success? I think it's really important to think about it from a really basic level. And I know you are all engaged deeply in that because you are here today. But success or a diploma means something very, very different in Indian country than it means outside of Indian country. And it's really hard to articulate what it means. It's nearly impossible to articulate what it means in Indian country to get a diploma. And it's taken me sort of a decade, if not longer, to sort of sort through what it actually means at the really visceral level, what it means. And I can't say I'm going to do a good job of being able to articulate that, but I'll try. So as I mentioned, for me, higher education was just an expectation. And it was an expectation because of the schools that I attended. I went undergrad to Dartmouth and graduate school at Harvard. And in many ways, it was the big ticket, the big prize was just getting into college, getting into those colleges. And in fact, there were these crazy matriculation ceremonies I'd never even heard of. I actually remember having to look up, what does matriculate mean? There was this ceremony where you get your name called. You were supposed to dress up all nice. And now we hadn't even started classes yet. It was just getting into those colleges, which was the ticket. It was the sort of the crescendo. It was the affirmation that you were going to be somebody or something. The degree was sort of the bonus at the end. It was not the grand prize. And so I realized that my experience with student success or getting the degree is very different and sterilized by the expectations of an Ivy League student. So while I collected diplomas, I never connected with diplomas. I never truly understood what they meant or what they symbolized for myself. Granted, I was proud of the hard work and the persistence to get those degrees, and the fact that I beat the odds. I'm a poor kid from the reservation who's grew up on commodities, who's broke down cars in the yard, that I was able to get those degrees. I understood that was great, but I didn't understand what a diploma meant. It took me to starting to work at the American Indian College Fund about 12 years ago to really, truly get a sense of what Indian student success means at the visceral level. Why is it that we do what we do in higher education? Why does every single Indian student matter? And when I joined the College Fund, which is an organization that provides, among other things, provides scholarships to thousands of Native students every year, mostly tribal college students, but mainstream university students like our university system here in Montana. I volunteered to be a reader and a scorer for the applications, and there's several essay questions, and one of the essay questions was, why do you want a degree? It was that straightforward. Why do you want a degree? And across the board, the responses were very direct, were very honest, it's sometimes very, very raw. There was, I remember there was one student who had 2 children before the age of 17, who had applied. She wanted to just prove to her grandparents that she would become someone. That was it. Another who had been taking care of 4 young siblings for most of her very young life, just wanted to be the first positive role model for her siblings. There was a young man who was in a race with one of his cousins to hold the honor of being the first person in his family to get a college degree. Many of them shared the reason for going to college is to learn their tribal language or to be just generally to become a bigger asset in the community. One non-traditional student just wanted to prove that she could and that she was good enough. One young lady who actually came from Montana State, she was attending Montana State, she was a sophomore, answered that really basic question, and I won't forget this. It just said, it's not important for me, it's important for my family. That was it. I mean, how powerful of a response to an essay is that? So this was not about going to college and getting a degree like for a lot of reasons why other folks do. It was way deeper than that. When I started attending college graduations and listening to student speakers, interviewing graduates after commencement ceremonies, I noticed that they talked about their educational experience and their accomplishment as if it was something that was absolutely alive, that it was a living, that it was an object, it was a thing. Consistently, graduates would talk about my school or my education or it, not, yeah, I went to college. It was great. It was something that was living. And they talked about it, and so did their families and their friends. It was almost like a trophy that could be bragged about, fawned over, shared with family and friends, strangers without any prompting. It was omnipresent. It was ubiquitous. It was there. It wasn't just a college degree. See, in Indian country, college success means much more than a formal completion of your college requirements or widening job prospects or the ability to make more money over a lifetime. We've all seen that chart. Oh, you better go to college because guess what? Look what you get to earn. It's not about that in Indian country. While it's personal to each graduate, Indian student success, college success, and that diploma is proof. It's a very real physical proof that anything is possible. Evidence that for whatever reason that you matriculated, of which I understand what that word means now, in college, that at that very moment, they were successful. And it was something that no one could ever take away. That's what Indian student success is. That's why we do this work. It's one of the reasons why we do this work. So Indian student success goes beyond helping a graduate feel success or holding a degree, although that, of course, that is really important. It's critical for lifting up our communities, our Indian communities, our non-Indian communities. Sterling Hollow White Mountain, a young man from Blackfeet, just wrote an amazing piece in the Atlantic a couple months ago called The Blackfeet Brain Drain. You should all read it. It's thought-provoking. He labored over this idea or this disconnect that he saw between the promise of higher education, and in an Indian country, that's typically the promise that your higher education will allow you to and prepare you to be able to help your people. And what ultimately happens, that our best and our brightest leave the reservation and don't return, also known as the brain drain. And this is a real issue in Indian country. It's one that I would never argue against. And this was a topic that we intensely debated when I was at Harvard in the Indian program. It was just grappling with, do we return when we're done to the reservation? And what does it mean if we return with the crimson letter, the expectation, well, hey, here's a Harvard guy. He's going to come in and fix everything. You're welcome to you're not welcome. Or if you chose not to go back to the reservation, what does that mean? What are you giving up? And ultimately, our conversations wound up with, as long as we are doing good for community, regardless of what community is, that we'll be able to make an impact. However you define community, your community may be the field in which you study. It could be a geography, a city, town. It could be the reservation. It could be a policy area that you're working with. It doesn't matter as long as you can impact your community. Because our lives, they twist and they turn. They start and they stop. They're impossible to predict. We may not know what line of work that we'll do or we'll do next, or where we'll live, or what community we'll contribute to. But if we can do everything, and you in the room can do everything possible to see that our Indian students can get across that stage, to get that it, I know that we are setting them up for success, our tribal communities for success, the state of Montana for future success. Higher education is that powerful. And it has been for me. It has allowed me to be a teacher, teaching on the reservation, off the reservation. It's allowed me to work for the American Indian College Fund and create better paths for accessing higher education. It's allowed me to tackle type 2 diabetes and childhood obesity in Indian country with the Nota Begay III Foundation. Or as Angela mentioned, working in Montana with the state of Montana with our tribes to accelerate economic development with each and every tribe in Montana. Higher education has allowed me to become the Assistant Vice President and Outreach Executive for the Federal Reserve Bank. And continue to do work in Indian country through the bank. It has afforded me to be able to speak with you today. I would have never been considered to be a regent if I didn't have a higher education story. Higher education has afforded me the opportunity to contribute in ways that I would have never thought possible as that young kid digging a portion of his family's income from a mud puddle 31 years ago. There are over 4,000 Native students in college in Montana. These students are not statistics. These students are not focal points for diversity and inclusion. These students are our future. Thank you for being here today and for endeavoring to build up another generation of successful Native American students. We're all better off because of you. Thank you.